I hope you did have a chance to rest, because next we have an awesome presentation from a director of engineering at Wargaming platform. His experience in one sentence, it's 25 years of experience in engineering, 14 plus experience in engineering leadership, and 7+ years of experience in strategic leadership. Also, some fun facts. Started to write code at 10 years, picked a university and a specialization fully on his own. Have worked in 9 product software companies, developed an applications in Python, Erlang, Java for at least 1 million users. So welcome on the stage, Ilya. Take your time. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for introduction. I'm Ilya Roslyakov, and today I'll share my experience and experience of my team, how we run performance tests in real production, where real users are playing specifically our games or doing something around, and I'll try to emphasize why to do it and then how. First of all, the story behind why I'm telling you that story, because roughly 5-6 years ago, we had huge problem. Our company, Wargaming, loves to sell a lot of stuff during New Year event. It's one specific day where a lot of games selling something to a lot of players, and that day we had huge trouble. We had downtime of almost 20 hours, definitely unplanned downtime, and everything was on fire. Our Christmas tree was on fire. And then I led project how to deal with that. I'll tell you further. And next year, during that day, we had only 5 minutes unplanned downtime. And then second year, we had less than 1 minute unplanned downtime. So it's our story, why I'm telling that. And what, by the way, platform. For those of you who play games, it's just in-house, Steam, GOG, Battle.net, easy. For those who don't play games, so Wargaming as a whole does World of Tanks, World of Ships, World of whatever else, and all these 3 games have some problems in common. How to log in, how to pay, it's easy, yeah? And how to do 10 other different stuff not actually related to game design. And our platform answers these questions. A team, commerce team, how to pay. Accounts team, how to log in. And other teams, how to do something else. And from technical perspective, there are 200 services. I mean, totally different services. One service is how to log in, and 199 other services for other purposes. Kind of 10 data centers across the world. And in peak times, we as platform handle 1 million concurrent users. And it's done by roughly 150 engineers. And our service diagram is like that. Actually, no, I just Googled complicated service diagram, but when we tried to draw it on our floor a couple of years ago, it took 6 to 2 meters probably on our floor, so it almost took the whole space between 2 doors on our stage. So it's pretty complex. And it's how we see the external world. Many users, players, games are in demand. They're asking for something. They're trying to use our APIs. And why I'm talking about that? Because I have some experience assisting engineers with candles in the nights, not medical one, by the way, yeah, so nothing related to religion, by the way. And it was, by the way, my second project around performance testing. In one of the companies before, I participated in development of both application performance testing framework in Erlang, distributed one, not invented there, and actually testing the system. So in 2 companies, I worked on application performance testing at scale. And if you're sitting right now here and waiting for some fine-tuning of Nginx config or how to do something really narrow configuration in engineering or some lines of C++ code, it's good time, by the way, for you to stay and go away because it's not what I'm what I'm gonna talk today. So today I wanna share story of managerial task, how to deal with big problem in production. And today, when I say perf-test, what I mean is something like that. Green line is you prepare your system, like register users, register some group of users, then give some load to the system, like login, view page, register again, and at the right side of the picture you see something goes wrong. So it's the point in time where system can't handle the load, so something is wrong there. So it's the simplest definition of performance test for today, for my presentation. So if I mean performance test, it's something like that. Okay, and I'll start from why. So any ideas why performance tests are needed from the audience? Just a couple of words, no? Why to do performance? Yeah. To not break production in the future? Nice, yeah, thanks. Okay, yeah, you yeah, probably the first reason, unfortunately, only mother could love was you had trouble. So actually, yeah, you guessed my slide, by the way. So to prevent that thing to happen, you need performance testing. For better of us who didn't have huge unplanned downtimes, I'll try to explain why else. As typical business owner, product manager, whoever who takes care of the business, you expect your business to grow, to get more audience, to get more money, to get more everything, whatever, anything. Yeah? And then you need to make sure you can handle that growing audience. You can handle that growing amount of sales and so on and so forth. So if you can imagine any system, at least web system, that doesn't handle a lot but is well known, try. You have 50 minutes for your example until the end of my presentation, because I actually don't. All these systems handle a lot, so if you want to grow, you need to know how to handle a lot. Also, you need performance testing if you're afraid your basement is weak, so if your infrastructure may have some trouble, if you may have a clean lady electrical circuit problem, you know. So you need to figure out how your system recovers after some sudden problem. Also, if your users suffer response times, suffer try again errors, you need to check how your system behaves in that case. Also, you need performance tests if you have ideal team that has enough experience to build system that scales infinitely because you are smart, really enough. I mean, I'm sorry, it's some sarcasm there, because none of the systems scale linearly infinitely. Sorry if you thought so. There is my examples, like Erlang cluster has some limit how many nodes you can add, cloud has the limit of API addresses, of capacity. I may continue that list, but actually none of the systems scale infinitely until you've proven it. You need performance testing if you scale mentally. If you think, okay, I have 3 GBs of memory, 3 CPUs, and can handle 3 RPS, what if I multiply it? What if I make 5 and 5 and 5? No, it's not how it works until you prove it. Even worse case, where you need performance testing when you think you've proven some scaling, like you had one instance of something, added second, and now you can handle twice more RPS. Good news, you scale. Bad news, now you think you're the smartest person in the room. Yeah, but you may conclude like, what about 10, what about 20 nodes? No. I'll repeat it one more time until you prove it doesn't work. And it's typical my conversation with some technical managers. They say, oh, in my team we checked. What happens if we add some resources, add some disk, add something else? Ilya, don't worry. we'll handle more and more load. Don't worry, everything will. And you know what? Why I'm telling that story? You may guess. And why to do that in production? Any ideas? Performance testing in production with real users. Why? Slides. So you mean if system is really large and we need to check it in reality, yeah? Okay, nice catch, yeah. Any other ideas? Because nobody has guessed my next slide yet. No? Okay.
Way.
Unexpected, yeah. Thank you.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. Real users will use the system in unexpected ways.
Great. It's okay. Good enough. My next slide, thank you. So the problem is differences. So, and what differences you want to ask? I'll try to explain. So you may ask me like, Ilya, why do we need performance testing in real production if we could just have production-like environment with some test users, some traffic anonymization, some data anonymization, and just do it there, yeah? Why? I would answer, because it's a miracle. Production-like environment is infinite goal, but it's still a miracle. Why? Because, first of all, what does it actually mean? What means production-like environment? Do you have great model in terms of configuration, hardware, and a lot of other different stuff, processes? Do you have that model? Okay, maybe you do. Maybe you do. But if you have that model, what means to have production-like environment, precise production-like environment? If you have different bare metal, hardware, something else, it means copy of your production, yeah? And copy of your production copies not only hardware, but costs. So you need to duplicate costs of your production to have precise production-like model. And not only that, for instance, we had problem when we tried to do it. One day, we figured out we have cloud, we use cloud, and we require 10 cores from there. But cloud thinks it's smarter than us and says, everybody requires 10 cores, why not to give you 5, actually saying we gave you 10. So it was overcommit. Then we figured out that that cloud uses virtual machines behind, and these virtual machines also thinks they are smart enough to say, pretend to say they have 10 cores, but actually given 5. So what we had 10 number in our configuration, but 2.5 actually. So I'm sorry, yeah, for diving that deep. So if modeling and money are not problem for you, then how to manage these copies? Maybe you have infinite DevOps engineers who manage these copies. Somewhere in China, some people maybe use USB Type-C drives to deploy something. So how many? Like, how to do that without continuous delivery, continuous integration? And also countries love to say, store all data locally, please. We are in Europe, we have GDPR. But anywhere in the world, there is some country that requires you to store something locally. So how to manage all that stuff? It's complex. But okay, modeling, money, people are not a problem. You still will have some differences, even in that case. Because if your system has failed in production, you should wake up and do something. But in production-like environment, you actually should not, yeah, or should. Not sure, but it means you'll have different monitoring and different network security, means let QA engineers go to prod-like, but not to production. Let engineers enable debugging and tracing in prod-like, but not in production. And I can continue on that list, but today, anyway, I have 50 minutes and traffic. Traffic has one additional layer of hell. Because what if you have millions of users distributed across the world and you have some long polling on your websites? Or what if you need to send chat presences to all these users? How would you do it? Would you start millions of bots across the whole world to emulate that? Really? Is that possible? And what about network? You'll also have, at the same extent, differences in DNS. So, with traffic replication, it's really tough. But what's even more tough is bare metal. If you have bare metal, you definitely have additional layer in the hell for you. Because, okay, you have one node and you need to duplicate it. But that node isn't already produced. What does it mean? Does it mean you need to buy 2 new nodes, but you already committed to pay for 4 years for that node? So with bare metal and duplication and prod-like environment, it's really tough. And I'll start trying summarization. On high level, you need production performance testing when you have high risks. What do you do in finance? You buy stock options to prevent some risk. What do you do in life? You buy medical insurance. And what I propose you to buy in engineering, performance testing activities in production. So you manage risks by performance testing in production. Let me give you a financial example. Imagine you're a turkey. Imagine, really, turkey. What are your expectations from the next day? You'll be fed more, you'll live longer life, you'll be more happy, you'll get more weight, you'll get more something, but then Thanksgiving comes. Sorry, you didn't expect that. Why? My point is, if you haven't had huge problems in production, you've just no idea how painful it could be. You don't understand the big picture. And also, it's a picture from Twitter about Shopify. You might see there, they had some plateau, so they couldn't handle some sales probably, and they did a lot of performance testing activities. And next year, what they actually had was even higher than they tested. So you need performance test in production if you've no idea what's your potential, if you always had some just plateau. And that's it. I'll try to summarize. Why? Why to do production performance testing? Because prod-like environment is a miracle, and also you need to think about configuration, hardware, processes, data, all that stuff. It's pretty complicated, but you'll still have some differences. So it's infinite, nice goal, never be achieved. And now, finally, after 15 minutes, about how. I'll start from just tests, not in production, yeah, just tests. So how to performance test something. The simplest picture is like that, blue line, and yeah, give some load, see how something goes wrong. And remember that number, 4. What's interesting there is stability test. Okay, 4 looks like stable, let's check how stable it is. So let's run some tests for many, many hours to prove that your system is stable on that 4 number. Then, the clean lead electrical circuit problem, so check how your system is resilient, how it recovers after some failure. Sorry for artificial graphs, by the way, so NDAs, you know. And check how your system overcomes stress. The difference is in red triangle and rectangle. So a different angle means you give more load at the beginning of your test, and most probably your system will fail. Typically, systems fail after some stress overload, unless you prove it, unless you check it, unless you have a lot of experience. Then think about load scenarios. Again, the simplest scenario, but what's interesting, stair steps. It's when you give some load and check it stable. a little more load, then check stability, and so on and so forth. It's an ideal test for the night. At the evening, you may start that test somewhere in your Jenkins, and at morning, check the last stable stair step. So it's a combination of two tests for those who want to sleep at night. Then think about scenarios. Typical scenario for my lovely logins is something like that. There is definitely some peak time in whatever geography where users log in more than in other time. That's it, okay, but what's more interesting is complex scenario. If you add some load to the same system, like purchases, usually previous blue line degrades. Okay, maybe you designed it intentionally, checked, blah, blah, but usually when you do it first time, you'll have some degradation in complex scenario. Also, think about time, long time. Day, you know already, yeah, login and purchase. Check weeks. What's going on somewhere in Friday, let's say. So maybe you'll find some specific peak numbers. Check events. You may see typical logins there, but purchases, yeah, red line is over blue line. It means users had been waiting for something and then started to purchase. And don't forget about the whole year. Usually, in our company, 11/11 is a specific day when a lot of people related to China start buying a lot of stuff. Maybe you have different day in the year with different peaks. And then start working with expectations for your system. Any of you have clear performance expectations to the system? Raise a hand. Those who do have clear expectations to the system. Cool, cool. I didn't expect hands at that one because I don't have enough time yet to. But manage the expectations, or expectations will manage you. You need to work with expectations to your system. Here, I propose you to use some business language. Sorry, engineers, but yeah, you need to learn business language to sell that presentation to your top management, maybe if you don't have that practice, and to decompose expectations. Return of investment, P&L, financial result, risks. Yeah, but actually these words would assist you selling and understanding something. Something what? You need to figure out your capacity expectations. And those who remember physics from school, it's easy. It's easy to work with expectations and capacitors. Yeah, really. I mean, for those who don't, sorry for being your captain obvious. If you have one load balancer and two nodes, then 1 plus 2, 3. What are you talking, Ilya? What do you ask? I'm talking that if you connect these capacitors sequentially, definitely with different APIs or something, you'll have model like that. You may check me or you may trust me. Anyway, I'll go further. Do you remember? Platform services diagram. So if you see that formula and see that picture, you guess what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's tough. I'll try to give you an example. Really simple one. How you may need to think about it. There is a web page. Typical user is for 5 minutes there. And you know users have 1 key RPS of logins. And you have that long polling once per 10 seconds. And then you need to divide apples to kilograms and to sun, I don't know, so some weird numbers. And then figure out, 5 to 60, it's 5 minutes, 300 seconds, 1 key RPS, divided to 10 seconds, 330 key RPS to your long polling API. Something like that. Then write everything down. It's almost a real example from our Confluence. I love just that format, so I share it. Like scenario, what you do, display or purchase, average or peak function, then geography like North America, Europe, then estimation, And then why? Why that estimation? Some reference, the closest real number, and some historical data. And write down table like that. And good and bad news are, now you need to talk to some feature developers, to some products, to some consumers, to some people to clarify usage, but you calculated something, you have some history, you talk about features. Now you are the person who really knows what's expected from your system. That means, sorry, you need to take personal responsibility for the numbers because nobody else knows. A lot of freedom and responsibility for engineers there. I propose you to think about headrooms. By headroom, I mean some additional capacity you must have. From our practice, if we had some previous max number on the graphs, add x2 headroom. If there is some failure in the past, add x4. If there is some critical API, let's say pay, then also add x4. So add some headroom. And it also my typical fight with many people around. They say, last year we saw only 10. Why do we need to handle 20? Just in case, because it's critical API. What if people want to buy more? What if? It's pretty complicated, but I propose you to have headrooms. And one of the lessons I got from one of our stakeholders, by the way, thanks one of our currently technical directors of games, they proposed to have simple table how system can behave, and that simple table you finally can go to managers and say how much you can handle. Something really simple, errors, response times, that's it. To summarize, think about models, types, scenarios, complex installation, and so on and so forth. So how you'll test and how you'll find expectations, and then work with expectations, with your shiny responsibility. I mean, if you are here, you're probably interested how to do it, so it actually means each of you. So think about expectations, calculate and review. And how to do that in production. Any ideas? What would the first step to do that in production? Carefully. Great. Any other ideas? First step. Make dev environment similar to production. So get close to that miracle. Good. Yeah.
I would say that the first step would be to identify the user journeys, how the user behaves, and then we can automate that to test in production.
Okay. Yeah, everything is true.
I have another idea. You need a red button to stop the test. Yeah.
Nice, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, my next slide is a little different. But I propose you to build a team. If you have complex enough system with many users, audience, and so on and so forth, it's impossible to do it alone. I mean, if you at all have that problem, you already won't be able to solve it alone. Sorry maybe for some outdated titles, but I propose you need feature delivery manager and product manager. Feature, what feature you would ask? Because in common you have two reasons. One reason, you had big trouble as we did. Another reason, there is some release, there is some feature, there is some new capability somewhere in the future where you wanted to be prepared for. Yeah, so you need to run these performance tests to somewhere in the future, to some feature. So somebody needs to know what's going to happen and what will be delivered. Quality assurance engineer may assist you checking functionally that your system works, because if it doesn't work functionally, no reason to check performance. Here is you. We name you technical feature owner. It's architect, principal software engineer, staff software engineer, tech lead. Doesn't matter how you name it, that's the most senior technical person responsible for that feature. And good and bad news are, you're also responsible for application performance, because it's chicken and egg problem. If you don't design system to handle performance, you won't. If you don't handle performance, you need to redesign systems. So it's one person responsible for both architecture and performance. And I also propose you to have sale event manager, not sale manager, not event manager, but sale event manager. Is somebody who is running around when you're going to run that event. And some DevOps engineer, at least somebody from these should know how to do something with their hands, yeah, how to fix that actually with all these managers. Better more than one, but then plan. By plan, I mean, when you first propose to do production performance testing, you'll have many managers watching at you, many people afraid of what are you doing. So try to keep them calm. Say, okay, maybe each Thursday night at 2 a.m., somewhere in predictable schedule, somewhere when you have on-call schedule, people who may wake up and fix the system. Don't forget about calendars of your stakeholders to don't overlap with some sale event during that time, and automate everything. You know, doing something in 2 a.m. in the night in a team of 10 people, when you try to break your production, being under watch of 10 managers, it's not somewhere where you want to have some misprint. So try to automate your scripts. Then get approves. It's our just checklist how to get approvals in parallel. So now you're preparing to run performance tests in production, and somebody needs to go to stakeholders and talk to them. Because in our world, for instance, when I go to games and say, what's your scenario when platform doesn't work? Platform doesn't work? Whoa, 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 whoa. So usually they don't think about that. And usually probably your clients also won't. So try to open that conversation so they at least don't have their start of event during peak online. Maybe that's the essence of the event, but why not to ask? Maybe not. Ask about caches. Do they have any caching of your responses? Ask about feature flags. What if your new capability doesn't work? Magic number, lovely magic number, 504, gateway timeout HTTP code. Ask your clients what they do. What, by the way, Amazon does. If something went wrong, there is some nice picture. And you're not that angry at that moment. You like open that, oh my God, oh yeah. Yeah, shitty platform, but yeah, it was like nice picture, something like that. Talk about that with stakeholders. Then track results. It's your responsibility as that person who is doing all that. Similar table, specifically in blue, where scenarios, expectations, and actual results in isolation, in complex scenario, and the most interesting column is there because it's green or red, and it's a lot of freedom and responsibility for engineers to say, is that green or red? Is it okay enough or already no? So good question, by the way, about performance. Then it's where your delivery manager is needed to draw bigger number of colors across different goals, important goals, and it's not a joke. It's a table you'll send via email to stakeholders and top managers and everybody because these people are asking, what is going on? What have you done in production? Is that okay or not? Ask the person who knows how to present. Ask them to build a table that's pretty simple. So colors are simple for everybody. Then think about money, specifically about real money purchases, because you won't be able to test card payments in production. You don't have infinite money. Think about subscriptions. Think about payment providers. Our real story is 5 years ago we had 20 hours unplanned downtime. Then we had done a lot of job, but still had 5 minutes of downtime. You know why? Because payment provider didn't handle amount of payment. So we actually performance tested one of our banks. We tried to say that we're gonna sell a lot, but they didn't trust us, so try to talk to payment providers. Then check infrastructure, sorry for some. Again, Captain obvious thing is like 2 nodes for availability, 3rd node to update, these 4 nodes for quick releases, but also think about business master connection if you have a lot of logins after some mobile application update or web page update, and from technical perspective. If you have network split brain, whatever systems think they're alone. If you are in cloud, it's already a 3rd layer of hell, for that case, because in cloud everything is much more tough in terms of specifically performance, because you'll have some virtualizations risks realized. There is something maybe wrong with network. Cloud says it's network, but it's not actually a network. It's SSD disk between data centers or what. You'll definitely have some common resources. You think that you have 2 virtual machines and you have some availability, but 2 virtual machines are on the same bare metal node. The same about resources, like, okay, you think you have some I/O capacity, but it's also tied to one bare metal, and so on and so forth. I mean here, definitely not Amazon, let's say, but I mean something a little more different cloud here. And monitor everything. I propose you to have a lot of graphs. You may see 6 rectangles there and a lot of categories. Just trust me, any of these categories have much more rectangles. And I even didn't have chance to screenshot everything. So it's, by the way, real production. Oh my God, real example, but from testing environment. So I propose you to have a lot of graphs, and then combine them to application layer, to some database queue infrastructure layer, and then to hardware. Monitor everything. But everything. Who monitors everything? Start from simple stuff. We start from API metrics like histogram of response times and errors, and think about your dependencies. If you're an owner of an application, what's with dependencies? What's with connection pools to these dependencies? And if you have virtual machines, welcome to the hell. We, for instance, use for logs Elastic and try to migrate to Loki, and for metrics we use classic, typical Prometheus. Then, don't forget to switch off rate limits. It's a surprise here, so first of all, I assume you should have rate limit. It's your defense if it's maybe simple engines between you and customers so your system doesn't fail under load, but you need to switch it off to not test only your rate limit. Sleep well between, your night performance test, because every morning, actually maybe not morning, but every noon after night performance test, sorry engineers, you'll have a meeting, and during that meeting, named retrospective or something like that, you'll discuss what happened last night. And good news are that 90% probability you'll have one of these 3 issues. One, forgot to remove some test data, some test scenario. Second, didn't scale something, like workers, hardware, something else, and had no idea what happened, means lack of metrics or logs. Fix it, and next night, welcome back. I propose you to have your sale event support checklist, means collect your experience. It's how we are doing it. I already described 4 steps, but I also propose you to have collective review of expectations. Since you're responsible for expectations, you need to set up a meeting. Oh my God, third one. Show your expectations to all tech leads and say, we expect from the system that. Do you agree? No? Review it. And don't forget to ask people who organized that event how it will have happened. Like, what about money? Why did you do it? Like, should we celebrate or what? So ask feedback from marketing, sales, or whatever team that asked you to handle that load. Think about fallback scenarios. Anyway, you won't test everything. You need to think about what if the database goes down, data center goes down, something else goes down. Test scenarios, not only think, test these scenarios. I also propose you to have, based on these scenarios, game day. Game day is practices I describe, really. Build a list of scenarios, not as simple as just database is off, a little more complex, that destruct your system and that demonstrate some problems. Then get a room, sit alone, pick one of the scenarios, pick time, audience, maybe get approvals if you're in a really tough organization from a couple of key stakeholders, and then let your system fail. When we did it first time, me and my manager were looking at a lot of chats and we were like, oh my God, 20 minutes passed, but nobody noticed the problem. Then like 15 minutes, a lot of people discussing something in chats. Should we make an advice to them or not? Like, it was really interesting first time. So sit, enjoy how your team recovers the problem you've made. And don't forget to celebrate. You've done a lot of job, you handled this some load, celebrate how you can. So, just to summarize, how to do that in production. Build a team, control, review, approve your expectations, these expectations you're responsible for, sorry for reminding. Talk to stakeholders, do that regularly, test fallback scenarios, maybe run a game day, and then don't forget to celebrate. Did you think we are close to the end? No, no way. I have 10 minutes more. So, I've shared a lot of practices how to do that in a good way, but then how to save money. Do you remember P&L? Business word? So think about that. How critical is to check something? What the cost of downtime? And what the cost of test implementation? What the cost of people not sleeping at night? Think about all these stuff and sort scenarios you want to test by some order, because you won't ever test everything. Monitor the system internally. Use cascade SLA, I mean, formulate what you expect from the system as a whole and then to subsystems. We also try to use tracking ID when we may track user from user through all these Python, Java, Erlang, many other languages systems to somewhere in the database. Use stubs for external dependencies, not because you take care of them, but because you may add some metrics to these stubs. We, for instance, use OpenTelemetry and Grafana Tempa for stuff like that. Don't start it first time at night. I shared how to do performance tests at night. Don't do it first time in the night. Start during the day, please. And why? Because first time you'll definitely break something. It's better to have more people awake. Just as simple as it is. And also don't start from production. Even more, start from just functional test and installation. You already, I hope, have it. Then test and installation each of every component. Only then test everything, function everything. Why at that stage, by the way? Because you know how to do it. Just do what you know there and then start combining components in terms of performance. Because when you are here, and you don't hand load, your question would be, okay, and which of the components actually doesn't hand load? It's where that step would assist you, because it's like scales problem from school exercises, you know. And only afterwards, go to production. If you passed all these steps, run production performance testing. Anybody in the audience, raise a hand, have all that picture implemented? Oh, come on. Anybody else? No. We also try to get there. It's infinite loop, by the way. So I mean, if I needed to write CV, I would say we've done it. But my internal engineer is a little frustrated. I'm dead inside. But production-like environment, that's miracle. Okay, it's miracle, but let's make that miracle at least fast. Why CI/CD and tests in parallel, so it's fast, measurable. Don't put 20 applications to one bare metal and say, doesn't perform. What doesn't perform? Which of these 20 applications? So separate applications, separate tests, not say like system doesn't work function, and so what? And override your real production problems. If you have small database in production, won't ask why, but just have small database in production, make it even smaller in your production-like environment. So if you pass tests in production-like, you're safe in real production. Monitor the production itself. During peak sales, peak events, some other interesting moments of time, even set up on-call duties to these specific moments of time, to have a lot of history data to rely on. Regularly update tests. What one performance test in production gives you? Just the closest bottleneck, and that's it. But how many else bottlenecks you'll have? No idea. Only if you do that regularly, you may overcome some uncertainty. And if you do it regularly, you may even track degradation after features. So update the tests. So in ideal world, you may run tests after each commit. Nobody really does it. Yeah, I mean, for tests in production, come on. But try to be close enough, but not too close. Otherwise, you'll be just testing production, but nobody would develop features. And add tests after big problems, after issues. Sorry for being a little Captain Obvious here. It's the same as with functional tests. Really, you may replace perf-test to just tests, and that's it. Rate limit. The rate limit I propose you to have. Know your limits, because it's sometimes the only thing you may discuss with stakeholders. So communicate your limits and defend. So have some rate limit to defend it. It's your point of discussion. It's your way to not hit the air. So you know your limit, you have enough hardware to get close to the limit, but not too close. So it's a way of optimization and talking to stakeholders. So how to save money? Panel of tests, monitoring of your system, unify your pipelines as much as it's possible, regularly update the tests, and rate limits. And what to avoid? Aside from presentations for 50 minutes, I propose you to avoid some other stuff. Let's try to keep your mind on. Yeah, it's almost the end. I just promise. Try to avoid inexperienced people. Because somewhere in the night when something is broken, usually it's close to database, to index, to some stuff that we name software development life cycle. Computer science, databases, it's needed there. And what's also needed, in the night, in a team of 10 people, when you try to make production break, under watch of managers, under stress, it's where attentiveness and stress tolerance are not just buzzwords from job description. It's really needed there, yeah? don't expect too much. It's one of our screenshots from somewhere in the past. We performance tested our system, la 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 la, and then we had explosive load in production. Means you can't test everything, so don't expect too much from your performance testing. But don't fear too much too. Sorry, it's pretty complicated to be there. Because you already have trained people, you know how to do it safe, you know how to work with incidents, just do it. Do it. And I had a lot of discussions with people who tried to prevent me of doing it because like, we know how to do it. Why? Because what to prevent and what might be your biggest problem if you don't have any damage during production performance tests. Because if you don't have any damage to real users in real production, you actually have no idea what's your limit. You haven't tested your limits. It's like you have no idea where you fail. So, and predictable failure under watch, under on duty, is much better than the same failure but during real cell event. Definitely better. And it's, by the way, the biggest selling point when I solved it several times. Like, just try to break production but under control instead of doing it suddenly somewhere. Don't trust the expectations too much. Do remember these expectations, your personal responsibility. What I'm actually saying, don't trust yourself too much because it's complex. You've done a lot of stuff in theory probably, but anyway, you'll have some resource conflict, you'll have some explosive growth, so expectations are never ideal. Sorry. So what I avoid? Panic between, we don't know how to do, we're in trouble. Avoid zero damage during production testing and control your ego. You remember that picture already? What I also wanted to show that next 2 years after these 3, we didn't have downtime. And yeah, I need to clarify what I mean by downtime. I mean, during cell event day, none of big people in our stakeholders noticed that we had downtime. Yeah. Nobody really knows what happened, but they did notice. It's your goal. It's really final summary, yeah? I mean, there is no other slide. Nothing really scales linearly until you prove it. Nothing. Pro-like environment is a miracle. You may try to achieve and you should try to achieve, but it's a miracle. You not only can, but you should damage real users sometimes, not every night for sure, during your production performance testing. Save everything, create artifacts. I propose you to screenshot your Graphanas because they have some retention policies since it means laying off. And do that regularly. And that is finally the end. Anybody has questions? When you're formulating your question, I remember who asked questions to me. Yeah, thank you, I remember you had question.
Thanks. Ilya, thank you for your brilliant presentation. It was real fun to listen to it. So I have a question about how do you avoid interference with business intelligence? Because when you are testing on production, you generate a lot of events, and those events can be and should be first stored somewhere, and they should be analyzed by business intelligence engine. And how do you avoid some faulty data? Thank you.
Yeah, it was one of my slides I had to remove because we also had troubles with business intelligence, yeah. I don't have really great answer, talk to them. So we specifically add some flags to test data. We notify them when we're gonna have, because we had a case like morning, somebody from business intelligence comes and says, wow, last night we have that many purchases. What happened? You know what? It was just a test, sorry. So, like, warn them, add some flags, that's it.
So guys, please know that we have only 5 minutes for questions, so please ask.
Hello, everyone. I'm Martin. Thanks, Ilya, for your speech. It was really interesting, and especially thank you for your images. It was really great. Yeah, and I absolutely sure that you have like a huge experience and the big of the story in your pocket. But I would like to ask you can you tell us the story of your biggest fail in what you have in IT, specifically for the production testing? Maybe have this one.
Biggest.
Well, and what you learning from this?
We've had several times cases like chief product officer asks like, oh, you had 30 minutes of downtime yesterday in the night. And we said, yeah, only 30 minutes. Like it's our discussions are built. Yeah, sometimes we've broken some, but biggest. So I would say typical problem is like half of an hour. It's the chain like high-level support, then engineers, then since we're awake in some meeting room, they fix it in 30 minutes, but some money, 30 minutes, I'm sorry, I don't know, like we didn't have we already had 20 hours downtime, so enough. We had good training, so our night downtimes were kind of 30 minutes, rarely.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I have a question. When you performing the performance test and you affect real users,
Yeah.
do you collect the feedback from real users that something is wrong, something is not working, and how you deal with it?
We have dedicated teams, I would say, customer support, player support, and so on. How we deal with it? I mean, there is nothing new for sure. I mean, okay, system is down, we're bad people, what we want to know. So we more like warn our support teams that we're gonna do it. So if they have some inquiry, like everything is down, they already know we have production performance testing, and they may say, try again in 30 minutes, something. So we plan that ahead, but we don't actually react somehow on that. For sure, I mean, by we I mean as platform, because our games will have these pages try again in that case, so users will see like try again, something goes wrong. So users see that try again, customer support is prepared, and we know everybody hates us if we break system, sure. We try to avoid it.
And the last question?
Thank you. I have a question about users as well. Do you inform your users that you will have performance testing, especially if your users are companies? And the second question, how do you choose the date of the performance testing? Maybe some tricks?
Users know. Companies, it's somewhere between. So when we started that practice, for sure we had to talk to them, like what we do and show that presentation, you know. Now we try to just do it. So we try to change that overtone window to the case where we can do that sometime. So now I would say we don't update companies. And could you repeat the second part of the question, please? Because, yeah, 50 minutes of presenting is hard.
One more question between the second. Okay, do you see some difference from a scenario when you inform your users and when you don't inform your users in behavior?
Users. If by users you mean
Companies.
players, I really not, I mean, production performance testing is not something where we must or most probably will have a problem. Means it's not that actionable. What would be the news? Like with 10% probability you'll have some unavailability maybe. It's not something we may share really. So we don't do it. So, and that's it. So we don't warn players, we warn stakeholders sometimes if we have some big test, like if we have test of some really big feature. First test, yeah, we talk to our stakeholders so they know what we're doing, but not users, I mean players. It's for them, I mean anyway, whatever you read as news, you can play or not. Yeah? If you can't play, and platform is bad, that's it.